Story 1. Discovering my wife's had a wild side. Now I'm the villain for wanting a divorce. She had a past I never knew about. Part 1. I might be an asshole here, or I might not. I know I'm being told I'm an asshole, but honestly I don't feel like I am. I feel alive for the first time in my life. Anthony, male 29, start from the beginning? I have always had an extreme insecurity when it came to girls and sex. My therapist and I think it started from a traumatic experience I had when I was 14 years old. I was at the city pool. I had my very first girlfriend, that I had been dating for 3 weeks. It was the start of summer and everything was fine. We were there with a lot of friends, like 15, both boys and girls. I was standing on the edge of the pool, my girlfriend was standing next to me, we were talking to a group of around 6, mostly girls that were in the water. The other groups were scattered around in the same section. It seemed that for no other reason than divine intervention, everyone just kind of turned and looked in my direction. This was probably not the case, but it sure felt that way. At that moment my best friend, Ralph, came up from behind and yanked my trunks down. I gave everybody the full frontal. Now, I had just been in the pool, so there was some serious shrinkage. Needless to say, everyone erupted into laughter, including my girlfriend. I heard some jackass yell out, "Hey, look at Tiny Tony." I pulled my shorts up quickly. My instinct had kicked in hard, and I ran out of the pool. I left my shirt behind. I remember getting on my bike out front and just pedaling all the way back home. I was so humiliated. Everyone had seen, and now everyone thought I had a tiny dick, including me. In reality I am extremely average, but it took me a long time to figure that out. I spent the rest of the summer avoiding everyone. My best friend tried calling and texting several times. I ignored every attempt. He was very apologetic, but honestly the damage had been done. My girlfriend tried contacting me too, but I never messaged her again. I swear I didn't leave the house but a few times that whole summer after this. The biggest change, however, was that I told my mom I wanted to stay with my dad, because that meant a different school district. I was starting high school that fall, and was so embarrassed by what happened, I didn't want to go back to my old school. I mean, it wasn't just my friends group, it was a busy day at the pool, there were plenty of people there that I knew and didn't like as well. The last thing I wanted was to be known as Tiny Tony, all of high school. Plus the way I ran out of there, I may have had tears, I can't remember, it was just so fast and so awful, honestly just one of my absolute worst memories. My parents were fine with me switching. I know my mom was hurt because it changed her from my primary address and thus where I slept most nights. I just told them it was because the school where my dad lived was bigger and newer. For note, my parents only lived about 30 minutes apart, so it wasn't like I was really that far from anyone. They bought it and I switched schools. I coasted through the next 4 years with a few friends that were also into the nerdy stuff I was. I am not a very assuming guy. It was pretty easy for me to stay under the radar. I am 6'3", so every now and then I'd get a tall joke tossed at me, but otherwise not much. I didn't play sports and didn't really talk in class unless I had to. When I got to college, I met a girl. Her name was Jody. We were quite possibly the two most awkward fucking people to ever get together. Jody was raised in a strict religious household. She was actually homeschooled. The weirdest part was her parents had this belief that when kids turned 18 they were on their own. She had to move out of her house. She stayed with her older brother, who had pretty much the same beliefs. So yes, I spent all 4 years of college dating the same awkward, sheltered, shame-raised girl. I had some college friends, but she didn't have any. She was waiting for marriage, and given my insecurities I was fine with that. We did do some hand stuff, but that usually ended with her going into a guilt spiral. I came out the other end of my bachelor's, and immediately decided to go for the master's degree. She did too, but transferred to a different school. On our graduation day, which only her brother came to, but he did bring a card from her parents. She broke up with me. Her exact words were, "Well, thanks for being my college boyfriend, it was fun, best of luck next year in grad school." Never heard from her again. I spent the next 2 years in grad school and did not date. I graduated and found a top-notch job coming out. I was on the path to a solid career. I found myself a nice apartment and settled in. I was a 25-year-old virgin who had kissed exactly 2 girls in his lifetime. I had no real social life other than online video games. I did have this one coworker, who was an extrovert, gross I know haha, and he was always trying to get me to go out for drinks with him and the others. Most humans would have given up on me after the first dozen rejections, but not Vince. Anyway, don't get me wrong, I was lonely. My insecurities were just so rampant, it was better than putting myself out there. Then one day, for whatever reason, I said yes to Vince. The others from the office were shocked but excited. Red flag. I was already questioning what I had gotten myself into. Especially since they took me to Hooters of all places. We sat, and not a moment later this very attractive early 20s waitress came over. As the night progressed, she would come over and talk and flirt, as I learned they do so to pad the tips. The guys were pressuring me to talk to her. So when she came over and started chatting with us again, I began asking, "So how long have you worked here?" At this point I had reached for my drink, which I then dropped and spilled everywhere. As I flailed back, I hit another drink and knocked it over. Our waitress ran to grab some towels. The guys were all laughing. Another waitress came over and started cleaning up right in front of me. She was standing very close with her hand on my back. I looked at her and she smiled at me. That was how I met Brooke, female, 24. Part 2. Brooke was gorgeous, smart, funny, and for some reason interested in me. The night I spilled beer all over, she gave me her number. I was never going to call, because I was pretty much terrified of rejection or embarrassment. Then she came into my work one day. The waitress we had that night managed to remember where we said we were from, and after a week went by and I didn't call or text, she took the initiative. I still remember the way she came up to my desk. She was composed, and cute, and asking in a sweet way why I hadn't used my phone to call her. I stumbled over my words, and she just took my phone off the desk and called her phone. She had my number now and said she would call me later. She called, asked what I was doing the next night. She was off work and wanted to go out with me. I agreed. We went out for dinner. I brought her some flowers. I did have one girlfriend before, so I wasn't totally devoid of knowledge in this department. After dinner we went on a long walk. I went for a kiss at the end of the night. She blocked me. I was doing my best to hide my full panic. She could see it, and before I could apologize said, "I just want you to know, I prefer to take things slow. It's kind of a rule for me. Do you think you could do this for me?" I said, "Absolutely, the slower the better. I'm good at slow. In fact, however you." She interrupted my rambling by pulling me down to her and kissing me. I called the very next day and our whirlwind romance was in full swing. Over the next 4 months we spent most days together getting to know one another. We seemed to mesh in every way. She was pushing me out of my comfort zone. I was doing things and saying things I had never done before. Probably went out more times in those 4 months than I had in the previous 10 years. On the flip side, she was always telling me how safe she felt with me, that she felt she could be at ease, be herself. I got more and more bold as time went on, and more open about my past. It was around the 4-month mark when I completely clued her into the pool incident, Jody, and my 25-year-long sexless life. She said she suspected the last part, which surprisingly kind of hurt. We never really discussed her past in detail. She let me know she had been in sexual relationships before with a few boyfriends. I was not surprised. She was perfect. I'm sure guys were always after her. It was around this time that she graduated from college. I was really proud of her. That day we spent most of the day with her family, who I was meeting for the first time. She had a younger sister, who did say to me, "You are nothing like any of her boyfriends." Brooke snapped at her and her best friend Kristen said, "Yeah, he's not a douchebag. That's why different is sometimes better." It all kind of dissolved at that point. While I appreciated the defense and compliment, it did strike me as odd that all her previous BFs had been a douchebag. But maybe that's just what they said because of bad breakups, I don't know. The next night I took Brooke out, just the two of us. I wanted to celebrate and we had a really nice dinner. I was going to take her out dancing, but she said she wanted to go back to my place. I kind of knew what was about to happen. I was really excited and really nervous. When we started I was at first relieved because she simply came out of my bathroom with no clothes on. I had been really worried that the thing in movies where two people stare at each other while slowly undressing was real. Luckily it's not. But for real, WTF is that about? I mean, who does that? She was pressed up against me asking if I was ready. I was still dressed at this point and said, "Yes, let me hit the light and I'll..." She cut me off. "Why would you get the light?" I looked at her nervously. And she didn't hold back. "Is this about your dick?" Not gonna lie, the directness caught me off guard and I just nodded. She continued, "I have felt it through your clothes before today. You're not that small." She undid my pants and pushed them down, took it in her hand, then looked me in the eye. Babe, this is a normal sized dick. Are you seriously telling me you've avoided women your whole life because you thought this was small?" I started back with, "Well, the guys in the videos." She talked over me, which happens a lot. "Babe, that's fantasy, not reality. This is very normal. Lay down, we're gonna get you up to speed." It wasn't until the next day I started to wonder how she really knew what average was. Anyway, our sex life was pretty frequent from that point forward. I proposed 1 month later, and she said yes. Most people thought it was too fast. I admit now 5 months may have been a bit fast, but we were in love. We got married in a small wedding 7 months later. Brooke got her dream job, my career was advancing, it seemed like we had it all. Everything was progressing nicely for the first year. This included my confidence level. That's when the problems started. Problems that would see our relationship go from my perceived perfection to divorce in 1.5 years. It began with me wanting more. I kind of noticed that our marriage was a little one-sided. We didn't really split things evenly. It wasn't money that concerned me. To both of us it was our money. We had one joint bank account even though I made significantly more. It was more that we had way different effort levels. I was probably doing 75% of the stuff around the house. I was the only one who cooked. Her cooking involved the microwave or ordering out. I planned basically every date night. The biggest difference, however, was in the bedroom. Prior to her I had virtually no experience. Now that we were married I wanted to have those experiences. I don't want it to seem like I was asking for some crazy porno stuff. I just mean, I wanted to try some variety in positions. We had only done 2 since the first time. The only time any mouth action occurred was to help get me there, so we could do the same 2 positions. I would ask her sometimes for certain things, and she would always tell me she wasn't interested. If I probed to ask if she had done those things before or why she wasn't comfortable, she would always say, "Yeah, I have, I'm just not really interested in that anymore, they aren't that great." Or, "I'm not really that person now," or, "What we do now is what works for me." If I ever pressed the issue, basically saying, "Well, what about what works for me or my desires?" she would actually gaslight me a bit or say, "You really aren't missing out on anything, the things you've seen in the videos aren't really that great." It was about this time our frequency also started to decline. This went on for about 6 months, until we had a fairly large fight about how I felt she wasn't interested in me. She told me, "I obviously am interested or we wouldn't have sex at all. I don't get where this is coming from, we both get ours when we do, what else is there? I think if you are having this much of an issue maybe you should seek therapy for your own issues." I took her advice. I began therapy, and I believe that was the first step towards our divorce. The second step wasn't a step, it was a leap. Brooke and Kristen had 2 old college friends coming in from out of town. And what I learned that night changed everything. Part 3. My therapist and I had been working together weekly for 6 months at this point. The first couple months were just peeling back all the layers of my insecurities, that went back a lot farther than just that fateful day at the pool. As we worked through all of that, I began to grow in my own confidence. I became a lot more direct in what I was asking from Brooke. This also spilled over into our lives outside the bedroom. I was learning more and more about attachment styles, and love languages and all this other shit I had no idea about. As I attempted to implement the things I was learning though, Brooke pushed back harder. She was not interested in talking about our intimacy. She stuck to the idea that this is what marriage was like. Brooke appreciated some of the things I had learned in therapy but for the most part wanted me to stop. I've come to realize that was because I was disrupting the status quo. She liked the way her life was. We did mostly things she wanted to do. I handled most of the cleaning and day-to-day stuff. Our future, like kids, home ownership, was planned around her timetable. Even our bedroom life was centered around what she wanted out of it. It did not help that right around this time her BFF Kristen finally got her engagement finalized. That whole situation was a total nightmare. Brooke was MOH, and I knew Kristen would put a ton of pressure on her. Kristen's wedding was set to be a destination wedding and a small affair. That meant a lot of old friends would not be attending. Kristen and Brooke both decided to invite a few of the closer non-invite friends out for a weekend to just have a little fun and celebrate. Only 2 of 5 or 6 were able to come. I had met each only once before and didn't have much interaction that time. We all went out to dinner and drinks, Brooke and I, Kristen and her fiancé Chris, and the 2 friends Regina and Victoria. The night was going fine. I tried to talk to Chris but he wasn't very social anymore, which was understandable, he had lost both parents in the past year. As the drinks flowed the ladies got louder and were falling over each other laughing. They got to reminiscing about college. Nothing too bad. A little innuendo about Brooke and a weekend trip that caught my attention, but then Victoria spilled her drink. It wasn't very full, so no biggie. She came up laughing, looked at me, and said, "I'm turning into you." After a few chuckles, she said to me, "I'm sorry. I'm sure that was embarrassing, but honestly that's about the only thing I know about you." Brooke told me all about the cute shy guy right after that happened, and how he was so embarrassed and oblivious to her advances. I replied, "Yeah, it was, but it all worked out." At this point I got the idea Victoria was past the point of no return drunk, and that was verified by her next comment. "I was half surprised when I heard that story she didn't take you home and fuck the embarrassment out of you that night." Brooke looked mortified. So I tried to naturally change the subject to something a little more PC but still on topic. No, we didn't start dating until the next week, and we took things pretty slow, which I think worked out since she put a ring on it. I laughed, hoping my stupid joke would shift the focus. Victoria exclaimed. What? First date Finley, Brooke's last name, taking it slow? My demeanor shifted. Oh, first date Finley, there is a name I hadn't heard before. Brooke was staring daggers and Victoria was oblivious? Oh yeah, I thought the alpha betas were gonna build her a shrine, but I mean you know what that mouth can do. Oh, can she still bend into any position she wants? I replied in the most condescending tone, while slowly turning towards Brooke. Yep, any position she wants. Kristen snapped out of her bewilderment at this moment, and was like, Vic, I see your drink's empty, let's hit the bar. The night definitely got chilly after that moment, and we all soon returned home. The girls were having a slumber party, over at Kristen's house, and I dropped them all off. Brooke tried to say something to me in the car, and I stopped her. I just told her we would talk tomorrow. She came home after the two friends left. She came home on the defensive? Brooke led off by telling me, I don't want to talk about last night. I picked you, that should be enough. You need to learn to be happy with what we do. I responded, I'm not happy, and I do want to talk about this. You cannot just bully me into dismissing this. Why am I not good enough? Brooke. You are obviously good enough. I married you, even though you had no experience at all. Me? Then what is it? Because I think you need to see a therapist? There has to be a reason you don't want to do anything more with me. Did you do all that out of some sort of insecurity? Are you ashamed? Did someone assault you? Use you? What is it? I want to help. Brooke, for fuck's sake drop it. No, I wasn't abused or used. I did what I wanted to do with those guys. It was fun, but that was it. Just fun. We have something real, and I was done with all that. I don't need a therapist, and I don't need this shit right now. Between work and Kristen, I've got enough going on. Me? So I'm not worth having fun with? What the fuck am I? You just decided, I had my fun, time to find some chump to take care of me. You're gonna sit there and tell me you don't ever think about doing that stuff. She cut me off here. Of course I do, I just don't think about doing them with you. My heart ripped in half, I went stone quiet. The expression on Brooke's face changed in an instant. She knew what she just did. She tried to defend. I didn't mean it like that. That came out wrong. Look, there's nothing wrong with being the safe guy. Every girl is looking for him. I love you. You're my rock. I would take you over that stuff any and every day. I just nodded. It was a pretty awkward day after that. I kept up with my therapy appointments, let my therapist know about what I had found out. She put me onto some books about love and sex and communication. One of these books was an ENM, ethical non-monogamy, focused book. It wasn't because she thought we wanted or needed that. I had never expressed anything like that to her, but she said, it has a few chapters on dealing with things like jealousy, envy, which in your case is retroactive and not proactive like the book is written, so you'll need to refocus what you read. It also gives advice on having hard conversations about sex and intimacy. Don't think I'm suggesting you need an alternative lifestyle, I just think in this case those few chapters may help your situation. I took the advice and ordered the books. This would lead to our biggest blow-up yet. A few months later it was just any old Wednesday night. Things were still strained between Brooke and I, but we had reached some level of functional equilibrium. I still felt like I wasn't being heard, but we had both been so busy I didn't bother addressing it, figured I could when things calmed down. For whatever reason, Brooke got a wild hair and decided to clean up our extra room, which is where my desk is. I was not hiding anything. All my books were in a stack on the desk, and when she saw the ENM book she flipped out. She came out of the room to where I was screaming, "What the fuck is this? If you think I'm going to let you fuck other people, you are fucking crazy." I tried to explain it was just something my therapist recommended because it has some chapters on communication. She was cutting me off the whole time I was trying to explain, saying things like, "Oh, your therapist, the bitch who put all this bullshit in your head." She kept going. I was trying to be calm and resolve things when she said, "Is this what you want? I'm not good enough, and now you want permission to cheat." I snapped. "You're not good enough. You point blank told me I'm not good enough, that I don't excite you. That you're all in for the lacrosse team, but your husband gets what he gets." Brooke came back. "Shut the fuck up, you just don't get it. That's when you do that stuff. When they don't matter, you matter to me. Your opinion of me matters. I'm not going to do something to make you think differently of me." I looked right at her and said, "That is the dumbest fucking thing I have ever heard in my life. I get less, you're less excited about me. You worry about me thinking less of you, because I matter. You matter to me, I'm the person you should be able to be the most open and adventurous with. She just shook her head. You just don't get it. I must not, because I just left the conversation at that point. We didn't talk for 2 days after that. I decided to give it at least one more good try. I really pushed for her to seek therapy like I did. It helped me with my insecurities, and this was obviously one she had and was holding on to. The idea I would judge her and think less of her for being herself in any realm was discouraging, and something I knew she needed to address. She just flat refused. She was too busy, and didn't have time for this. Didn't have time for me. Helping with the wedding planning was a distraction she leaned on to ignore our problems. A few months later I filed for divorce. I realized I didn't want to just be the safe guy. I didn't take that as an insult, but I wanted to be the everything guy, and I wasn't ever going to be in this relationship. Her reaction was anger. She lashed out at me, told me I was throwing away our marriage over nothing. I kind of questioned this, but she got our parents involved, her sister, her friends. I was being told by people outside of our relationship that I was a jerk, and I needed to rethink my priorities. My parents mostly stood up for me, but they did tell me to make 100% sure. I know they always liked Brooke. I ended blocking most of the others and not responding. I didn't want our problems out in the world, but now they are. We didn't recover, the divorce went final. I thought that would be the end of it, but after the wedding from hell, Brooke tried to get back in touch with me. She really did sound like she was finally ready to listen to me. Unfortunately, her decisions post-divorce made reconciliation impossible. I know I'm a whole new person though. No more crippling insecurity. No more irrational fear of rejection. I decided to hit the open market and see what was out there. Eventually that would lead me full circle, and face to face with Brooke after 5 years of no contact. Story 2. My girlfriend took a break from me and spent the summer with another guy, so she could be sure I was the one. Part 1. My girlfriend, Zoe, female, 23, left me to be with another guy 2 years ago. She did this because she needed to be sure I was the one. I was absolutely devastated. This was a premeditated decision. In the spring of that year, we were both in college, and had been together 6 years at that point. I was unaware, but she had been conversing with a guy in class. Feelings grew. She swore she never cheated or did anything physical or even met him outside of class, but they did have a lot of text conversations for the months leading up to her revelation. Just as the semester ended, she sat me down and told me she was going to go stay with him for the summer. He had just finished school and was moving to a new city and had an apartment lined up. She was going to stay with him for June and July, then return for our senior year. She offered me her phone and said I could read everything that was there. She wanted me to know she had not cheated. I was a mess. I love her immensely and did then as well. I was begging her to not do this. She tried to be as comforting and consoling as possible, but at the same time was steadfast she was going to do this. Her main reasoning being we had only ever been with each other, and she needed to know she wasn't missing out. I couldn't even begin to guess how many times she said she loved me still saw a potential future, and this was just to be sure. She even encouraged me to date. She left 5 days after this conversation. I tried so hard to get her to stay, but she went. I worked, and did nothing else those entire 2 months. I didn't socialize. I barely ate. I barely slept. I went from 185 pounds to 165 pounds. She asked me to not contact her. I respected that. I was living in our apartment. Everything was a reminder, a trigger. It was the worst, most painful time of my life. I knew she would return, even if not for me. We still had a year to go in college. And she did return. 1 week sooner than expected. It was a Sunday and she just showed up at the apartment. She broke down in tears upon seeing me. I was so much thinner, eyes sunken, mildly unkempt. The apartment wasn't disgusting, but it wasn't nice either. She told me she knew just from looking at me that she had destroyed me. We both cried for a long time. She was so apologetic. She said she knows now, she wants me and only me. I was more than willing to take her back. We had a tense honeymoon phase upon her return, where we were both tiptoeing around each other, spending lots of time together, but also having this elephant in the room. That lasted a month or so when I started having the anxiety attacks. This is when we finally started to address some of the issues, which we had largely avoided. It couldn't have been timed worse as we started back to classes about this time as well. Over the next 9 months or so I became more and more depressed. I was verbally abusive at times. Zoe took it, everything I said. She always tried to reassure me, always took responsibility. I asked all the time what I had lacked. What could I do better? Why wasn't I good enough? What more did she need? She always said I was great the way I was. That she made the choice she did, not because of any fault of my own, but out of her own immaturity. We discussed what her life those 7 weeks was like. Obviously it was a full sexual relationship. They went on dates, they slept in the same bed, showered together, that was our thing, at least to me it was. Talked about where this was going. I didn't think the wondering, the mind movies, would be easier to deal with than the truth, but I have a lot of days where I wish it was still just my imagination. The hardest part to cope with is she told me she returned early for me, but at the same time, after his initial 6 weeks he was offered the same position at another branch. That branch was about 5 hours away. Initially he was only about 40 minutes away from our campus. They talked and decided that while this had been fun, he wasn't sure it was worth continuing long distance. She told me she had mixed feelings, which was to her an indicator to return to me and try and redeem herself. I on the other hand now endlessly wonder if she would have come back at all if not for him moving. That brings us to a year ago. I was still easily triggered. I still had my moments of name-calling and verbal outbursts. She always went into support and reassurance mode. But not this time. She teared up and said, "I deserve it, but I can't keep doing this." I realized then I was going to lose her again. I don't want to lose her, it was so hard the first time. I love her so much. At that point I rug-swept everything. I stopped bringing it up. I stopped talking about my feelings about this, except in the most vague ways. If she brought it up or checked in on me, I played it off. Told her I was doing good and was in a different place now. We got engaged 6 months later. We just got married 2 weeks ago. Zoe has been everything a man could hope for this last year. I have regained my trust in her, and she goes out of her way to love and support me. I am a rising star at the office. I've been really pushing hard at work. I take on all the toughest jobs, and I have been hitting it out the park. I just got promoted, and with it a substantial raise. On top of that, I have made it a point to exercise regularly and eat well every day. I am in better shape than I ever thought I would be. With all that said, I make it a point to spend as much time together with my now wife. Even if she just wants to chill and watch TV, I'll massage her shoulders or feet, play with her hair, soft touch her arms or back. The little things she likes. The response has been huge. She can't keep her hands off me, we are doing small trips together, and our non-physical intimacy is consistent and deep. But, it's all born of insecurity. This is my problem. I am so driven at work, and the gym, and in the kitchen, and with my wife, because I am so terrified she will leave me again. I sometimes look up the guy, on social media. Just to make sure my career is going better, it is, that I am in better shape, I am? I don't want her to feel bad. I still feel so guilty of how I acted that first year we were back together, but it's hard pushing like this all the time. I'm just so afraid if I slip even a little, I'll lose her. I just got to stay focused, and enjoy the little moments of rest that come. If I do that, I think I can make sure no one beats me again. Part 2. I didn't really plan on updating, that first post was just venting, but I have had a few people reach out to me to see if I was doing okay, so I thought why not. Zoe and I just celebrated our 1-year wedding anniversary last month. Our relationship is going very well. We bought a house. She is always asking me how she ended up with such an amazing husband. I have been busting ass extra hard lately. I hit a big bonus at work, and her job is doing well, although she has a lot more work stress now. I've been doing my best to help take the home stress off. Generally, getting up a bit early to make sure the house is back in order before we head to work each day. I don't want her spending her time thinking about that. I still remember how she said the guy was a bit of a neat freak. She said that it was a negative, but actually her quote was, he was kinda a neat freak, which was nice, but made me feel all this pressure. Meaning she really liked that the place was always clean while she was with him, but I bet he got bent out of shape if things were left out by her. At least that's what I think she meant when she said that. That's why I get up early and take care of the place. I fix any mess she made or any dishes left overnight while she sleeps. That way she doesn't feel like it's her fault, or like I'm bothered by the small messes she makes. It's working well. We went to Hawaii for a full anniversary vacation, which was a place we've always talked about wanting to go to. We did a lot of touristy things, but mostly I was able to catch up on sleep. I normally only get 4 to 6 hours a night. So the extra helped out when I took on this really big client at work. If I do well on this one, another promotion could be in order. I rarely check on what the guy is doing now. His career hasn't grown as fast as mine, I can tell, and he has a bit more of a belly now. I know I'm beating him. He can't compete with me anymore. Zoe brought up trying for a baby soon, which is exciting. We can afford it, and it seems like the right time. However, I have been having some thoughts. Maybe you can weigh in for me. She has gotten pretty close with an older coworker, Mrs. Weaver. Mrs. Weaver was telling her some funny stories from the time she was pregnant. They had to do with her husband making silly mistakes, But she also told Zoe how he was super supportive throughout each time. Zoe said she thought this was a sweet story. I don't know exactly what she meant by sweet. It made me feel like her priorities are changing. It may not be enough to just be fitter and more successful than the others. I know there's at least one single dad at her office. To show her I can outdo him and any potential others, I started reading some books on how to best support your spouse through pregnancy, some do's and don'ts, a few other newborn books. I do this on my breaks at work, so that it doesn't interfere with the rest of my routines. Or I listen to podcasts while working out. I doubt most men are this proactive, and really doubt the guy would have been, and the coworker is a single dad, so there's gotta be something wrong with him, right? I mean, that's a red flag in itself. Unlike me, I'm all green flags, all the time. Do you think I have anything to worry about? Part 3. I had almost forgotten about this. I got on Reddit today because it came up on a Google search. Clicked and my profile worked. I see it's been 3 years since the last time I posted. We are the proud parents of an 18-month-old, Steven. He is perfect. Now that Zoe doesn't breastfeed anymore, I'm able to get up solo and take care of Steven. I mean, I always got up when Zoe did all those times before to help out, but now Zoe is a lot fresher. She keeps telling me it's okay to sleep in, since she is a stay-at-home mom now. But I'm still using a lot of that time to clean up the house so she can stay focused on Steven during the day. I got another promotion, my salary and benefits are huge now. It does mean I have some availability to handle problems outside of hours though. We will try and start taking trips again or go for baby number 2 soon. It took a little bit of time to conceive, but I made the necessary adjustments to help it happen. We had a major setback one night. I had only slept like 14 hours in 4 days. I was exhausted and stressed. Zoe made a great effort, but I just couldn't perform. The next day I made some major adjustments. I started eating Brazil nuts for the selenium, choking down spinach, added some green tea for the caffeine, balanced out my lifting with cardio. This was hard to do, because one day we marathoned the 3 Jumanji movies and she said The Rock was hot. Which was a huge wake-up call because this whole time I had been trying to have a more balanced physique, but now I know she prefers that big bulky look. So I've been trying to pack on pounds of muscle, but then I needed to get my cardio up again to prevent another incident while we were trying. It's all worked out so far. With the baby now, I had to focus more. I created a schedule to make sure I was doing all the things I needed. So every day of the week has something in every category. I plan every meal for everyone each day. I've assigned a different room of the house each day, and I have 14 activities to do with my wife or my child and I pick one each day. I also program my workouts to fit around all this. I know last time I posted people kept warning me that it was impossible to keep up at the pace I was going and I'd eventually burn out. But I haven't, I'm still keeping up, even here 3 years later. And most of that time has been with either a pregnant wife or a newborn. I also haven't heard her even mention someone else since the Rock incident. So I must be doing something right. I don't know anyone I'm not better than at everything. With all that said though, I need to do better at hiding my distress sometimes. That I guess is my biggest problem. Zoe has been asking a lot about why I'm endlessly driven, why I won't let her help more. Stuff like that. I'm pretty good at diverting those questions and explaining them away. However, this week she actually asked me if I wanted to talk about her leaving that summer, and that she feels I rug swept the whole thing. I think this all stems from when she heard me crying one night. I thought she was asleep but wasn't. I managed to cover it up, so no real harm. I can't let her know why I am like this, then she will go, I still remember it. I deserve it, but I can't keep doing this. That's what she said. If I falter now, I may as well kiss my marriage goodbye. Part 4. I've failed. It's all fallen apart. This last year she has been pushing me. Ever since she became a SAHM, she became more aware of my habits. She wants me to see a therapist. She even offers couples counseling. I don't need a therapist, that implies there's something wrong with me. How can there be something wrong? I do it all. I've done it all forever. I tell her I'm fine. I don't know why she won't accept that. She keeps saying I don't sleep enough, I have a workout addiction, I seem paranoid, I have no social life. I do those things to give us the life she wants, I stay fit for her, I'm not paranoid, I am just diligent of others. She has been going on about our lives and I point out how well I've handled everything all these years. Why does she think I can't now? I can keep going, I don't need a break. And yeah, I faltered today, but they'll never have to worry about that happening again. It was her, she brought up the past more and more. She thinks it stems from when she left, and maybe it does, but I don't want to go back there. That was so long ago, and I've done so well since then. She just won't let it go. She keeps apologizing, and telling me she loves me, and wants the best for me. I know all that. She says I can't keep this up, says she knows how I feel, says I need help. She doesn't know. No one knows. Then this morning happened. It was just once. She went grocery shopping, and I stayed with Steven. I was focused. I was playing with him. Then we started watching Spidey and Friends, and just sitting on the couch. I didn't mean to fall asleep, he was right by me. Zoe came home and found him in the kitchen. He had gotten into 2 boxes of cereal, it was everywhere. I popped up, immediately began to help, and apologized. She scooped him up and told me to stop and relax. But there was this huge mess. She said I was manic, that this was what she was talking about. That I need to rest, I need to talk to a therapist. I snapped. I screamed at her. I told her to drop it, to appreciate what she has, that I was fucking fine, and wasn't some loser who needed help. I was better than that, better than everyone. She just stood there and took it. Then she looked me right in the eye and said, "Do not scream and cuss at me. I know you are struggling. It's okay. Go lay down. You need to rest." Then she grabbed Steven's go bag, took him and started for the door. I asked where she was going. She said, "Just rest please. I'm going to my mother's. I'm just taking a break." A break. I just stood there quietly, watching her walk out. She needs a break. The last time there was a break it broke me. I have done so much and it wasn't enough. I still failed to protect my son and that's it. She's not coming back. I failed as a husband and a father. I texted her brother. Asked if he would come, he said he would be here in an hour. That should be it then. For those of you who followed me all these years, I guess you were right. No one's good enough, not even me. Part 5. Zoe's post. I've never posted on here before, but for those who followed my husband Sam over the years, I am Zoe. I linked his last post to this one. I'm only doing this because a lot of you showed him tremendous support, which I appreciate, and hope that anyone who finds themselves going through a crisis like he was will get help. Those who followed him know that 6 months ago we had an incident where he fell asleep while watching our son Steven. I wasn't angry, and I didn't blame him. I knew he was having a hard time. I was afraid. I had been trying to get him to get help for a while at that point, and with the emotion on the moment he snapped, and lashed out. He hadn't done so in many years. At that point I made a horrible mistake I regret more than all my other life regrets combined. I was frustrated, but thought a little space would help us both diffuse. I was calm. I told him I just needed a break. I meant just for a few hours and we went to my mother's house. I never should have left him alone. About an hour and a half later I got a call from my brother. He was so distressed. He had gotten a text from Sam asking for some help in the basement and to just let himself in. That's where he found him. He had hung himself from the basement ceiling. I hate that I couldn't see it sooner. Years went by before I really started to notice. It's just so hard when you're young. I was working too. We were trying to buy a house, have kids, and travel. It was a whirlwind. When Steven came I started to stay home. That's when I finally noticed. There had been hints, I just didn't want to see it I guess. You just don't want to admit things to yourself. You want to think he did all this just because he wants to. You think you're reciprocating it. Reading his posts, I didn't even realize how much I missed. I know he was actively hiding his stress and habits. I know he rug-swept all his emotions that could be taken negatively. But there were hints, why couldn't I see them? I'm the catalyst of his descent. I know I didn't deserve him after what I did. I've felt that shame for 8 years now. I've done everything I could think of to repent for my choices. I won't justify them. I was wrong, and I hurt someone I love beyond measure. I'm sure some of you wonder how I could do that to him. I wonder about myself often. It's easy to throw out the usual excuses. I was young, I was immature. To tell you the actual truth, it really was just fear of missing out. Combined with having a few friends in my ear, which I now realize they were not friends, and a schoolgirl crush on a classmate was all it took for me to traumatize the most important person in my life. It sounds so dumb written out, but it's true. The NRE lasted about a month, then it was 3 weeks of making up reasons to see it through. By the time I left I knew I had made a huge mistake, and came crawling back. I still shudder thinking how much I compartmentalized. The sight of him when I showed up has always haunted me. It's guilt I deserve and will always hold on to. For all the remorse I feel over what I did when I was 21, it pales to the feelings I have not been able to help him before it was too late. I think I have read his posts almost every day in the last 6 months. I failed him so much, I'll hold on to this pain for the rest of my life. I'll have to watch our son grow up without his father. Nothing will ever fill this void. I don't know what I wanted to accomplish with this, though it's been surprisingly cathartic. Maybe this will help someone else, Someone holding on to something they can't handle on their own. If that's you, seek help. It's not weakness, it's strength. No one is perfect. No one can do it all on their own. Story 3. I'm dying from a stage 4 terminal illness and no one cares. As the title suggests, I am dying of a stage 4 terminal illness and no one cares. I was diagnosed earlier this year and at the time it was already terminal, so treatment wasn't an option. I have about a year left to live, give or take. Not looking for sympathy, just ranting. I have already accepted what's happening. It's not like I can change it anyway. To the story. I had some family over yesterday and I had noticed all throughout the night my sister, brother, mother were all on their phones laughing. This is very unusual for them. I finally asked what was so funny and they all turned their phones away or locked their screens. I knew something was up. From that point forward they kept their phones hidden from me. I did finally get my chance to look at my sister's phone. She left it on the table when she went to use the restroom. What I saw broke me. It was all of them in the room talking about how they are gonna spend their inheritance, and what things they are gonna take from my house when I pass, amongst many other awful things said that I don't dare repeat here. I stood there for what seemed an eternity reading till my sister came back out and saw me holding her phone. She screeched at me asking me what I was doing. From there it devolved into a screaming match at the rest of them and I just kicked them all out. I'm now getting backlash from other family members. Why, I don't know. The entire situation is messed up beyond belief. I did tell the others what's happening and their response was, well, you should just forgive them, they are family, and other lines like that. The worst part of this is I'm only 30 years old. I don't have anything to leave behind. That's a surprise they'll find out later. I rent my home, my car is financed, and like many others at my age I'm more broke than a joke. I can't even afford to go to my regular doctor's appointments anymore. These are also my blood relatives, people I have shed blood, sweat, and tears for, and I'm just now finding out how much they truly care. I don't know anymore. These were the people I thought I could trust above anyone else. Now they only see me as a payout. I don't know who I can trust or talk to. What do you think, Reddit? 'Cause I'm honestly at a loss for words. Just sitting here crying. I don't know who these people are. I can't even talk to anyone about this as I have no one. This is likely my last Christmas I will be alive for. I will be celebrating alone with a bottle jack, I think. Merry Christmas to me, I guess. Update, December 24th. Thank you all for your kind words. I have read all your messages, or comments. There's just so many it's taking a bit longer than expected. I wanted to clear some things up. I left out info as I didn't want the post removed for a wall of text. I came out as gay 4 years ago to my family once I moved out of their house. This didn't go over well at all, as I had mentioned before, they are devout Christians. My being gay is a sin in their eyes and I'm a stain on the family tree, their exact words. I didn't take that. I may be a lot of things, but I do have a spine and I called them out on it. This of course created the divide between us. From the messages I did read, my mother seemed to be the ringleader here. She was the one telling my siblings that I had money to give. Which I don't. I still have no idea where she got the crazy idea that a 30-year-old in today's economy has any money. It's honestly just funny in an ironic way to me. As I mentioned in the comments, my affairs are in order, will, hospice care and so on. When I said I was doing this alone, I meant without support from friends or family. I went to doctor appointments alone, I got the diagnosis alone, when I found out I was terminal. I don't expect someone to be there with me through it all. I understand perfectly everyone has their own lives. But they didn't even show up for one. Ignored my calls and texts, and I'm only seeing now that they just wanted to use me as a payday. My grandma called today. She asked what was up and I told her the truth about what happened. To say she was pissed off was an understatement. She tore them apart on social media and on the phone. Which of course has now caused even more backlash and family members are taking sides. I've decided that I'm sticking with my original decision and will be spending Christmas alone. Better than being surrounded by people who want nothing more from me than money. Honestly, this just makes me sick. And as for the comments saying it's fake cause this is a new Reddit account. I made the account specifically for this story to keep my identity a secret, as I have family members who stalk Reddit frequently. That's it for now on updates. Maybe I'll update later once all this settles down. Also, it's not possible for me to go see my grandma for Christmas. She's immunocompromised and I don't want to get her sick, otherwise I absolutely would. Story 4. My marriage is falling apart because of my changed lifestyle. I am a 37-year-old woman. I have been married to my husband, 40, for 10 years. We have 2 kids together. Male, 7 and female, 4. I never had any issues in my marriage before. After my son was born, I went into deep depression. My life was not on the right track anyways. I was stuck in a dead-end low-paying job. I was handling my boy alone because my husband has to work overtime to feed us. When my daughter came, I made a decision to change myself. I used to drink a lot. Now I am sober. I haven't touched alcohol in 5 years. I have changed my diet and bad food habits. I go to the gym and do yoga every morning. My sleep has improved. My mood has improved drastically with just some changes. I do not get irritated easily or become helpless. I have also updated my resume and looked for a job that suits me. I make a decent amount of money now. I get compliments from people around telling me I look great. I have lost a ton of weight too. I thought my husband would be happy, but he is not. He dislikes that I get compliments from people or when people compliment me in front of him. I didn't see it as a big issue. He used to joke about how people assume he is Adam Sandler who got the hot chick. I used to brush it off as a joke. Then I discovered he was cheating on me with a coffee shop waitress. I don't think her job title matters, but that girl doesn't seem nice to me. I have looked through some of the chats of her and my husband, and she called me an old hag trying to fit in with the young. She lives with her parents and is a high school dropout. She is only 22 years old. I am devastated. I thought my husband would be happy. Our sex life has been better than ever. This affair has been going on for 7 months. Despite me working more hours now, I still do all my wifely duties. I cook for him, make him lunch for the office, and initiate sex and intimacy. Now here I am getting a divorce from him. When I confronted him about the affair, he told me being with me is always overbearing. He feels invisible because most people give me attention. And somehow it is my fault. I was obsessed with myself rather than noticing how this is making him feel. He feels small because he has been stuck in the same place 5 years ago. I don't get it. I never pushed him to follow my lead. I always told him that I loved him no matter what. Why is this happening? I don't want my kids to grow up in a broken family. But I cannot live with him after what he has said and done. I know he is being insecure. But he didn't have to hurt me like this. I know as a single mom it is tough to survive. People have warned me that my husband could act differently towards me. They were right. I wish it didn't end like this. Update. Hello guys, I want to thank all those people who have supported me and been kind to me. I know people have PM'd me to know how I am doing. I am doing fine. Yes, there is still pain, but things are moving smoothly. I did get my son and daughter to therapy. My son knows why we are divorcing. He gets angry sometimes and throws a fit. My daughter is too young to understand anything. I just want to know how I can handle this. How can I make my son see none of this is his fault but his father's? I do not want to keep anything a secret from my kids because I believe the relationship between a couple affects the kids too. I do want him to have a good relationship with his dad, but I do not want him to take a bad lesson from it. The other day I was watching the movie, Family That Prays. I know this is silly, but I had this fear inside me that what if my son blames me for the divorce like Andrea blamed her mother because her father left? What if he turns out just like his own father? I cannot control everything that goes inside his head. I try my best to be there for my son, but the constant fear of losing him is still there. My father came to visit me. He lives in a different city. He knows half-truth. After knowing the full truth, he was very angry. When my ex-husband came to visit our kids, my dad and him got into a huge fight. My dad slapped him. My dad used to be in the army, so my ex-husband is terrified of him. He threatened to call the police, but my dad shouted, "I am not afraid of a cockroach like you." I told my dad not to make things more complicated than it already is. I am trying my best to keep my daily routine. Sleeping has been tough, but I do not want to depend on pills. On the bright side, I have a lot of free time in my hand. I realize that half of my chores have been reduced. I know kids are messy, but there is a huge relief. I do not have to clean crumbs off the table, or have rings of water droplets on the coffee table, which annoys me a lot. Things and stuff stay at its place. I started to notice, my husband was the one who made half of the mess and I was the one who cleaned it. Last week I went to the theater with my son and daughter to watch Barbie. We were accompanied by my friend who is also a single mom of 2. I felt good wearing the replica of the cowboy costume that Margot Robbie wore, my friend's idea. We did have a lot of fun. I am still trying my best to stay afloat. And I am not thinking about dating. I do not have the urge to date at the moment. I did get hit on in a few places, but nothing exciting. I will see you guys later. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give a like, share it with someone, and subscribe for more stories that inspire, provoke, and connect us. Thank you.